If you're watching this video, you're probably curious about selling stock photography and videos. Maybe you're curious about what kinds of images are selling for other contributors, like myself, or maybe you're interested in just how much money you can realistically make with your own images. So stick around and I'm going to share just how much money I've earned by contributing my own stock photography and video assets in January of 2023. And I'm going to also show you what images sold for me as well. Hey, if you're new here, I am Joel, and you'll find videos like this, as well as other photography and filmmaking videos on this channel. And if you're digging this content, I hope that you just show it with a like and or even a subscribe. That would be the best thing. In fact, this channel is actually getting really close to 1,000 subscribers. Why is that an important number? Well, once a channel hits 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours in a calendar year, that means you can actually apply to be a part of the YouTube Partner Program and finally be able to earn a few pennies from all of the ads that play on my videos. So I'd really appreciate your help. So if you watched these videos before, you'll know that I always start them off kind of with a recap of what January was like for me, both for stock photography and also a little bit of the personal side, mostly because it does, my personal life and everything else I got going on does affect just how much, if any, stuff I contribute to stock photography in the month. So overall, January was actually a really good month for me, stock photography wise. So I have to admit that my streak of not uploading anything continues, which means that the month of January was another completely passive month for me. In January, actually, I spent the month preparing and then traveling to Portugal, where I actually got to shoot some fresh stock photography content, which is really awesome. So definitely stay tuned for some more content from Portugal. I'll be having that on the channel here soon. I also got to meet up and hang out with another really awesome stock photographer who's been around forever. You might know him from his Brutally Honest blog. And we had a really great time checking stuff out. We did a fun photo shoot in Portugal, and anyways, it was really great stuff. And I will hope to have him on the channel at some point in the future. Alex, if you're up for that, we'll do that. Also, I ended up selling a bunch of camera gear as well, because I had to downsize. Maybe you've seen my packing video where I kind of talk about all of the crazy amount of gear I've been taking with me. So I sold a bunch of gear off, and I also replaced my DJI Osmo action camera with a GoPro Hero 10, and then I also picked up a Zhiyun Crane M3 gimbal as well. So, and finally, I also finished posting a whole bunch of new videos about different ways you can stabilize the Sony ZV-E10 with like Catalyst Browse software, Topaz Video AI, and also compared it with a gimbal too. So if you haven't checked those out already, they're on the website, well, they're on the channel rather, so please do that. So now let's talk about my earnings from stock photos and video in January of 2023. But first, since it is a new year, or this is actually the first this is the first video of the year rather, I'm actually gonna try a little bit of a new format. Honestly, I'm really trying to find one that is far less time consuming, and because these videos take forever to make, between writing them, doing the research, and filming and editing and everything else, usually looking at 8 to 10 hours. And I don't make any money at all off of this, unless of course someone's kind enough to buy me a beer, or even purchases something from one of my affiliate links in the description below. You know, you can do that if you like. The time I spend making these videos is honestly time I could be shooting and editing images and or editing videos and uploading them for stock. So when I think about that, it's probably something I should do instead of doing this. Probably far more beneficial to my time, huh? Well, that's it. That's the end of these videos. No, I'm just kidding. Overall, January was actually a really great month for me. In fact, in total, I earned $101.36, and that was actually from 46 image sales and 1 video sale. So let's go ahead and start with that video sale, shall we? So this video sold on Adobe Stock, and as you can see, it is a video of driving down a 2-lane road on a tropical island. This is actually filmed with my old DJI Osmo action camera in Puerto Rico. So the video earned me $2.80, which is a little bit disappointing, especially since it was Adobe Stock. So in the past, I've sold similar clips from this series on Adobe Stock and for over $28 each. So I'm not really sure why this one sold as low as it did. I think it perhaps could be because maybe it was sold in an HD format, or it might have been part of like some kind of Adobe Stock trial. I'm not really sure. Because I do know that the 4K version of the clip actually usually sells for $199 on Adobe Stock site. Of course, that's before I get my cut, but which ends up being close to $28 or even a little bit more than that if I get earnings from it. So next up, here are some of the images that I sold in January from a bunch of different stock agencies that had like low overall sales. So I like to call these my dishonorable mentions. January's dishonorable mentions were Canva, 123RF, Deposit Photos, Dreams Time, and Pond 5. So here's just a few of the images that sold. This vertical shot is of this pirate statue in Treasure Island, Florida, and it actually sold on Dreams Time as an editorial image. Next up, we have this Toyota Land Cruiser. Got the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains in the background. You may have seen this one on the channel before. It sells quite a lot for me. It's also sold through Dreams Time as an editorial. This shot here is of the Mount Britain Tower in El Yunque, Puerto Rico. It sold on 123RF and as a commercial image. This is another seller you may have seen as well on here. It is a shipwreck beach in Kauai, Hawaii. Also sold on 123RF. Now this is an interesting one because this is a picture of the Don Cesar Hotel. This is a really wide shot. This sold on Deposit Photos for 25 cents, but it also sold on Alamy, which we will get to a little later on in this video. And then this close-up of this palm tree against the background of the Don Cesar Hotel also sold on Deposit Photos as well. This beautiful sunset over the Gulf of Mexico was shot in Treasure Island, Florida, another Deposit Photos sale. And of course, this really cool shot. This is one of my favorite shots. This was shot on a Southwest Airlines flight over Hawaii, actually coming into Honolulu on the island of Oahu. And this one sold before. You maybe have seen it last January, it sold for a big number. And this year, a much smaller number, but it sold on Pond 5 of all places. And then next up, this one also sold on Pond 5, and this is Waikiki Beach on Honolulu from that same trip. In total, I earned $4.22 from all of those agencies combined. So now you may not always get sales from every agency or every platform that you have images submitted to. And for me this month, those were VideoHive and Fine Art America. I have a little over 100 images in my personal iStock portfolio, but I actually get pretty consistent sales every month. I know it's not a lot. I just haven't contributed a lot to this account, mostly because I already have a number of my images submitted in iStock Getty through EyeEM's partner program and as well as Wirestock too. But in January, I did have 9 sales on iStock and or Getty images, and that earned me $3.78, which is actually pretty close to what this portfolio has been averaging here for me. Starting with this shot here of palm trees silhouetted in Santa Monica. You guys have probably seen this one. It sells a ton for me. It actually sold 3 times. And then this same one here you may have seen too. This is a man wearing a traditional Oktoberfest costume. This was shot as an editorial image, and it also sold 3 times. And then this is just one of those rare ones I uploaded. I don't expect it to sell, but it's these clouds and a beach. This is actually Luquillo Beach in Puerto Rico. And then this shot of these lifeguard vehicles in Santa Monica Pier in the background is another favorite of mine, and it sold in January. And then finally, another festive Oktoberfest crowd from Munich. This is actually an old picture from 2008. It sold as well. Now over on Wirestock, I sold 4 images and I had an earnings of $4.11 in total, which includes some referral sales as well. So we'll start with looking at some of the images that sold for me on Wirestock, starting with this one here. This is an aerial shot of the Ralty River in Bunratty, County Clare, Ireland on a really beautiful spring day. and it actually sold through Adobe Stock. Next up, we've got this editorial image of an Oompa band and a crowd watching them in traditional lederhosen, and that was from an Oktoberfest celebration in Austria, and this one sold via Shutterstock. Next up, we have one that is kind of rare for me. This is only sold like once or twice before, and it's an abstract low angle shot of glass. It's like a glass grate, and it's surprisingly sold via Shutterstock as well. And then we finally have this wide angle shot of a ferry crossing the Puget Sound at sunset in Washington State, also sold via Shutterstock. So one final thing about Wirestock is that all of the Shutterstock sales were actually between 15 cents and $1.06. So I've talked about this before on this channel, in fact, maybe one of my Wirestock videos, but one of the advantages of Wirestock is basically that because Shutterstock has a tiered commission system, you can actually earn a little bit more money through sales through Wirestock than you can on a personal account, assuming that you have you're very low in the tier system. And that's basically because Wirestock already starts off like full blast, like at the highest tier possible. So that's why some of these Shutterstock sales were a little bit higher. But having said that, there are other issues with Wirestock. So that brings us to the Wirestock problem. And as you know by now, Wirestock has been making some really major changes to its business model. So I've talked about a few of the good changes in my Wirestock's extra channels video, that update video that just went out at the beginning of the year. And I have an upcoming video about the Wirestock Premium subscription, where I kind of go in a little bit more detail about some of these bad changes and what I think of the premium subscription model that they're doing. But spoiler alert, I believe that we are actually hearing the death rattle of Wirestock. So as a whole, I no longer recommend people submitting to Wirestock, especially if you're a new contributor. Previously, I thought that was a really good platform for people to start getting used to, like the whole idea of stock photography, because they make it a lot easier to upload. They reduce the barrier of entry, is what I'm trying to say, to get your images on a whole bunch of different platforms. But basically, since Wirestock is now pushing everybody with under an 85% acceptance rate to pay for their premium service by reducing the amount of free, easy submissions to only 30 per month. So that is really gonna bone a lot of people, and especially new contributors, because I don't really find it realistic that new contributors are gonna have a really high acceptance rate, especially just outside of their first images. I mean, in that case, you're still learning a lot of stuff. You're learning like what kinds of images will be accepted and what won't, because all the different agencies have their own criteria, and just like the technical aspect of everything. So overall, I just think that's just a really, really bad move for Wirestock, and it just really reduces the actual usability of the platform too. But again, like I said, I have a little more to go into about that in another video. So now let's talk about Shutterstock. I had 17 downloads in January on Shutterstock, but only $4.35 in earnings. So this is actually pretty average for me of my portfolio of 702 images and 77 videos. Most of the sales were of like the 10-cent variety. Since it is a new year, I'm also back to the lowest tier, the one I was just talking about earlier. So here are some of the images that actually sold for me in January. First up, we have this shot of the St. Pete Pier. Again, you have seen this one because it sells all the time. This sold 5 times for me in January. It earned $2.15. Next up is this shot of this lighthouse, basically sitting on top of a hill in Fajardo, Puerto Rico. It sold twice. And then we have the Don Cesar again. You recognize this big pink building. And this is the pathway with these palm trees lined up along the side of it. That also sold 2 times. And then finally, we have a black and white sale. I don't get a lot of black and white sales, but this is one I did in Seattle, and maybe because it's like extra dramatic, but it also sold once for a whopping 30 cents. And finally, this last one here is an editorial shot of this condo complex in Florida. So now let's talk about Adobe Stock. Adobe Stock is usually a pretty good one for me, and it's one of my definitely highly recommended stock agencies to submit to. Adobe Stock brought in $4.45 from 5 different image sales, a video that we already saw at the beginning of the video, this video. Okay. Anyways, the first one here is Lake Tahoe. This is at Emerald Bay, and you got this really cool tree framing one side and these 2 people just kind of looking out over the water. Next up, we have this really cool beach shot with palm trees. That's actually Playa Escondida in Puerto Rico. This dramatic evening sky with that yellow moon rising over the countryside with that barn in the foreground. That's actually from my dad's house in Washington State. And finally, we're back in Puerto Rico in El Yunque rainforest, where there's a waterfall at the Baños Grande baths. So now with EyeEM, I don't get a lot of sales with EyeEM, and there's also other news that essentially they're closing down. So I guess they just filed for bankruptcy. So there's always that. Remember, these stock agencies, not all of them stick around, and we've already watched 2020 go, and now we're watching EyeEM go, and this is just in the last year. But anyways, I did actually have a decent sale on EyeEM, and it was $4.67 that earned me. It was this shot here of this herd of horses running across like this grassy hill. And believe it or not, it actually sold on the EyeEM marketplace itself, which is interesting because it's actually only my second sale and probably my last sale that I actually got directly from EyeEM, because most of the sales that I've had on EyeEM over the years have actually been through their partner program in the past. Now, before I get into my best sale of the month, I ask you if you do me a favor and give this video a like to help other people find this type of content. And of course, if any of my videos have helped you in any way, you can show your appreciation by using any of the links in the description or even buying me a beer. I appreciate it and thank you in advance. All right, and finally, I have saved the best for last, and this is a really good sale for me. It's one of the best sales I've had in a very long time, and it was also through Alamy. Okay, so I really rarely get sales on Alamy, but when I do, they are usually far better than all the other agencies that I submit the same images to. My Alamy portfolio is not huge, but there are 844 images in it. I did receive an email about an image that I had on my website listed as an editorial, and basically Alamy reached out and said, hey, we've got this image, a client is interested in it for a commercial purpose, and the reason I didn't upload it as commercial is because it's a pretty famous landmark and I don't have a property release or anything for it, you know, so I didn't want to take any chances. But anyways, Alamy, I went back and forth with them and they wanted me to remove the editorial restriction on it. So after confirming with them about that, I removed the editorial restriction and promptly sold the image. So the biggest thing I was concerned about, of course, would be if I sold this, if I removed the restriction, if in any way someone used that image in a way they weren't supposed to, if it could come back on me. And, you know, because again, I said I don't have a property lease and I didn't want to deal with that. But the Alamy rep basically told me, and I quote, the permissions are the responsibility of the client, so no comeback for you, unquote. So here is the image that sold. And yep, there it is again, the Don Cesar Hotel in Florida. You remember, it's the same one that sold at Deposit Photos. So now after Alamy's cut, which is pretty darn big, because that's the only thing about Alamy is that they take a huge cut of your sale there. I earned $75.78 for that one image. What's interesting is that last year, I actually sold an image on Shutterstock of that same Southwest Airlines winglet view that you saw earlier for almost the same amount of money. It was also uploaded as an editorial image too, by the way. But I think it was purchased by one of the Southwest Airlines ad agencies or something like that. Here are my totals and number of downloads broken down by agency. So let me know what your sales were in January in the comments below. You can also check out my other channel, Wandering Hearts, to see some of my travel videos that I've been doing, and I'll put a link down below as well for that. And thanks again for watching. I hope this video inspires you with your own stock photography and video journey, and cheers.